wish I could play my Nintendo Switch games using a GameCube controller in tabletop mode while I'm on the potty.
We, the PowerA gods, have just the thing, my child.
Honey, there's a cosmic presence talking to me in the bathroom again!
This is the wireless controller Nintendo GameCube style from PowerA, #freeproduct. It's a recent addition in PowerA's line of fantastic video game controllers, and I have to say, I think this one's pretty good. Ugh, I'm gonna have to go wash my mouth after that. But how does this guy stack up to this guy? This is the GameCube controller that Nintendo released alongside Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, and I still use it to this day. Holds up nice, it's got a nice long 9-foot cable, but if I want to be free from that, is this a good alternative? And that's the thing we're going to explore today. So this controller has a lot of things I like over the actual wired official Nintendo GameCube controller, and the first thing I want to mention is the L and R buttons. So this is traditionally called Z, but there's actually two of them here, one on each side, to give you every single button that you would find on a Switch Pro controller. The nice thing about that is they have like a nice arched curve to them. They're a lot easier to press than the Z button that you find on the classic GameCube controller. This one is really clicky and it's not very large. This one juts out a whole lot more. You can press on it from any point of the button and still get a nice push. Just a lot easier to press down, if you ask me. In addition to that, there are clickable, I said clickable analog sticks. And it sounds glorious. The funny thing is I didn't even realize this until about 2 or 3 hours of playtime with the controller, because I just didn't expect it. The funny thing is it says it right here on the box, but who am I to read? In addition to that, you also have plus, minus, home, and capture, all available right here on the controller. One of the things I hate about using the wired GameCube controller the most is the fact that I cannot access the home menu without having a Joy-Con or a Pro controller by my side. When I use the wireless GameCube controller, all of that is accessible right here on one controller. I love the GameCube controller layout, and just having these buttons here is a huge pro in my opinion. Pro controller. I'm sorry for what you're seeing here today. This is Brandon Unleashed. So another feature of the wireless GameCube controller is a much bigger D-pad than you find on the classic GameCube controller. This is one of the biggest complaints you hear about the traditional GameCube controller. This D-pad is much wider, much bigger, a lot easier to press down, and it's got a slight roll to it. It's just so much better. So if you want to play some 8-bit classic games, this is a much better option. I still like the D-pad on the Pro controller a whole lot. That's a personal favorite of mine. I don't think this one beats it out, but it is definitely a nice upgrade from the classic wired GameCube controller. It actually connects as a Pro controller, so you can use this for any game that supports a Pro controller. The same can actually be said for the regular GameCube controller, wired using the adapter, but this just puts it in a wireless form factor and gives you access to those additional buttons like I mentioned. So all of those are nice features on the wireless controller Nintendo GameCube style from PowerA. But there are some things you can't see just by looking at it. Gotta use your brain, you gotta read. Silly me. So, in addition to having all those other features that a Pro controller has, this thing also supports motion controls. Yeah, you can use this controller with Splatoon. I actually tested it out with Splatoon, and I have to say, I thought it felt pretty much exactly like a Pro controller. There was nothing that I could feel that felt different from playing with a Pro controller. It felt responsive, it was quick. I actually liked playing Splatoon with the GameCube controller layout. I may actually continue playing that game using this. So that is a pretty neat feature. So any game that supports gyro controls on a Nintendo Switch Pro controller, you can use using the wireless controller, Nintendo GameCube style from PowerA. I'm gonna say that every single time. You should try me. AA batteries are in the back of this thing. My number one disappointment with this controller is the fact that it uses AA batteries. Why? That's the one thing that's gonna dock it. It's rated about 30 hours, and I've already got about 7 or 8 hours of gameplay time in with it already, and I haven't seen the battery dip, and that's a good sign. But that's the one thing. I shouldn't have to go out and buy batteries for my controllers anymore. That's just not the way the world works these days. So yeah, that's kind of a disappointment. I do wish it was rechargeable, but unfortunately that's just not the case with this. If you get a set of rechargeable AA batteries, maybe that'll work out for you. I haven't had a chance to try that out yet, but right now that's going to be a big con for me as far as this controller goes. Looking at my notes with my phone, you can't see, but they're right here. Right here. A few more things that you can't see on the controller. There's no HD rumble in here. Honestly, okay, that's one thing I'm willing to give up. I don't really care. Like, I like HD rumble a lot, but I don't really need to have it in this controller. This controller also lacks NFC, so you can't scan your amiibos into it. You're gonna have to grab your Pro Controller or one of your Joy-Cons in order to do that. But that's fine. Honestly, that's one of again, it's one of the things I'm willing to give up just for the form factor and the comfort that this controller provides, so no harm, no foul. And just a few anecdotal things about this controller. On the original GameCube controller, the start button is right here in the center, but that's not the case on this one. You have minus and you have plus, and in more than one time, I found myself reaching for start using my left thumb and accidentally hitting the snapshot photo and just getting a capture instead. Whoops, but I found out after about 4 or 5 hours of gameplay that I had gotten over that and I stopped doing it. Once again, not really a big deal. It's more my fault than it is the controller's. The layout is fine. Because L and R on this controller aren't analog, they don't stick out very high compared to the GameCube controller, the original one. At least that's the way I perceive it. It could actually just be because of Z sticking out so far. They are just clicky. There's no pressure sensitivity like there is on the original GameCube controller. But that also changes like the way that the controller on the top is molded out. On the wireless controller Nintendo GameCube style from PowerA, there are 2 notches here on the top to rest your fingers. I'm assuming that's what it's for. I've yet to actually figure that out. But on here, on the original wired GameCube controller, your fingers can just rest in the little, you know, cave area here, I guess. And once again, I find this controller fairly comfortable. There's just a few changes in the molding compared to the original wired GameCube controller, but it's not enough to really throw me off. In the first couple of hours, it felt kind of awkward for me to hold because I wasn't used to it, but I also hadn't played Smash in like a week because of work, so, you know, I was also rusty at the time, but after a few hours, like, to be completely honest, I forgot I was even using this controller. I thought I was using one of these guys. So just after a few hours, you know, muscle memory changed, I got used to this, and now I can play with it pretty confidently. Pretty comfortable. If you can get over the fact that this controller takes AA batteries and isn't rechargeable, I would absolutely recommend the wireless controller, Nintendo GameCube style from PowerA, because this controller is quite frankly pretty awesome. I didn't really feel any input delay or anything at all. In the first hour or so, I was feeling some missed inputs, and unfortunately, I can't say whether that was the controller or it was just me. Chances are it was just me, because the hours after that, it wasn't a problem anymore. I do think it's pretty responsive, just holding the controller up to the screen and pressing buttons and watching what happened afterwards. It felt pretty much right on point, so there's that. So with all that in mind, guys, I do recommend the wireless controller Nintendo GameCube style from PowerA. I think this is a pretty neat controller. It'll set you back $49.99, I want to say, and it comes in a few different colors. I actually went online and I couldn't find the silver. I could only find purple, black, and gray, but the gray is pretty close to this color, and for all I know, Amazon just got the name of the color wrong. Thank you, PowerA gods. This controller is a blessing.
I love you, wireless controller Nintendo GameCube style from PowerA.
I love you too.